Today's episode is brought to you by Datadog, a cloud-scale monitoring and analytics platform that unifies metrics, logs, traces, and more in a single pane of glass. Datadog offers 350-plus integrations with popular technologies and out-of-the-box dashboards, so you can easily monitor every layer of your stack. Plus, Watchdog provides algorithmic anomaly detection and forecasting, reducing alert fatigue and allowing your engineers to focus on what really matters. Visit bit.ly.com/DataDogShirt. That's bit.ly.com/DataDogShirt and try Datadog out for yourself with a free 14-day trial and receive a complimentary t-shirt. This is Scott Hanselman. This is another episode of Hansel Minutes, and today I'm talking with Nancy Gariché from Canada. You are a Senior IT Security Analyst. You work for the government. That sounds like a big deal.
It is. It's a fun thing. I've been in the government since the beginning of my career, so it's definitely a fun place to work where there's a lot of challenges, and I try to help and do what I can to help.
Mm-hmm. And you work on things like the security assessment and authorization programs and making sure that, information systems are secure. And I learned about you when I was learning about the Open Web Application Security Project, which I think a lot of people who are listening will know as OWASP. They'll see OWASP in all caps. And they usually see this like once a year. I think regular people think about OWASP once a year. Why is that?
Yes. Well, because we're known for the OWASP top 10 list. And the top 10 list actually comes out every 3 years. Yes, it comes out every 3 years. And it's a list of vulnerabilities, ways your applications can be vulnerable. So it's an awareness piece. It's not comprehensive, but it's to remind people that applications are vulnerable and that you may have firewalls, you may have a great infrastructures, but you are still vulnerable if you have application, and these are the top 10 ways how you are vulnerable. So it's an awareness piece. It's almost a scare tactic to let you know that you need to look at your application and start building them securely.
Yeah, it's a big deal. When you look at it, there's actually a wasp on the front, like of the one from 2013. There's like a picture of a wasp. It's just like,
Yeah.
And then it says top 10, and it's a whole list of like, it almost reads as like a document of shame because I'm looking at it going, oh gosh, I didn't do that attack vector and I didn't think about that.
Yes, I've been starting to talk about it as if you were going to the doctor and he wants to shock you into thinking about your health. So he's going to tell you about, do you know what you could catch or all the diseases? And that top 10 is like that. It's all the vulnerabilities, all your apps, all the vulnerabilities that your apps could have. But then it's not enough, right? It's not enough to scare you, to make you think that it's important. You need an action plan. You need something to do after that. Once you realize that you are vulnerable, so you have to come up with a plan, and that's what I'd like to talk about. All the other projects that can help you build great application and great software, and that we have also at OWASP. And the first piece is called the proactive controls, which is the sister document of the top 10. It's telling you, before you to have a great program to build secure application, here are the 10 controls that you should think about when you're building software. And that also is not comprehensive. That also is an awareness piece, but it's a more positive one to encourage you to take action. So I would really encourage people. I know that the top 10 is very popular and some people take it as a framework, but really important is to take the overall picture of your program and make it better. And that, I think, the way to start is the proactive controls.
Yeah, I think that the top 10 critical application security risks, the OWASP top 10, has become so popular that it overshadows the important things. And I'm hearing you say that the top 10 is really, reactive. If you've got yourself in a situation like that already, maybe you didn't be proactive and have the controls that you could have had.
Exactly. And it does have the top 10. I don't want to criticize too much the top 10 because it does have important information. It's not only a list. If you go into the document, it actually defines the vulnerability, where you can find it, how you can fix it, and reference other documents within OWASP that can help you. So it's, again, an awareness piece to let you know, hey, this is important. You're building software. Let's make sure that you're not that you're building them securely, and go to those other documents that we have, those other projects in OWASP that can help you do that. And so that's what I want people to know about. The proactive controls is definitely one of them. And if you go into the proactive controls, the first requirement, or the first control, is define security requirement. I don't know if you've heard, if you in multiple security talks, you'll hear to shift left, to push left, to think about security early on in your software life cycle. Well, the first requirement is to define the first control is to define requirements. And we also have a list that helps you go deeper, which is called ASVS. I forget now. What is that? Okay. Application Security Verification Standard. And that's a list of hundreds of controls that goes into different categories on how to build secure software. So it wouldn't be the document you would start with, because it's so comprehensive and it has so many controls. But it's definitely a document that you want as a reference to start building secure software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at the proactive controls and reading through this, and I'm realizing that honestly, I'm a little bit ashamed. All this time I've been reading the top 10 OWASP, and at the bottom of every single one of them is references and links to specific CWE entries, specific cheat sheets, specific development and testing guides. All this time, this huge resource has been underneath me, and I was just skimming a top 10 list. So I'm a little bit sad.
It's true. And you're not the only one. Vendors are referencing it all the time. They're talking about it a bit to scare, but they don't really read all the details. And there's a lot of information, and it references other documentation that you can leverage. And you've mentioned the cheat sheet. This is my favorite project, because I think it's representative. They have about 60 cheat sheets on different topics. And you can really go deep and say, okay, I want to learn more. I've heard that session management is a thing. Well, there's a cheat sheet for that. And it defines what session management is, why you should care, and what to do about it. And you can really focus on a topic specifically, and it can be also language specific. So I would really encourage people to go through the cheat sheet and find the ones that are relevant to them, and find applicable ways to take the advice to heart.
I'm noticing also one of the things that I didn't realize is that OWASP, both the top 10 and the other documents, look backwards in time and show you what's changed. So things that have merged moving forward, things that have become easy to solve against that may have been difficult in the past. Things like insufficient transport layer protection go from being a major risk to being something that's kind of a standard today.
Yes. And one of the proactive control, I believe, is number 2. I believe it's to use secure frameworks.
Right.
Sometimes just by choosing the correct tools, you are covered, right? Sometimes it's old technologies, old ways of doing things that make you vulnerable. And just by updating, just by patching, just by using something modern, you take care of a lot of things. So it's a good thing to look at that as well, to say, hey, maybe I'm not even vulnerable to these things. And also that it's a living document. That's why we update it every 3 years. And it could be useful every year, but it's a huge effort. So every 3 years, we go into the community, ask for their opinion on what should be on the list, what they've seen in their software. And it changes, because in 2013 and now and the latest version is from 2017. And there'll be a new one in 2020. And the list will probably be different, hopefully. Mm-hmm. But injections has been on the list forever, I think, since the inception of the top 10. So sometimes the problems we know about are not that easy to fix.
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about the way that OWASP expresses all these different things is it has the OWASP risk rating methodology that talks about the threat agents, the attack vectors, and whether they're easy or hard. So then you can make a decision when you're trying to secure your application about whether something is really prevalent, And you have to balance all of these things: its impact, its detectability, and how hard it is or how easy it is for someone to actually try to exploit it.
Yes, it's really important in everything. In all the controls that you want to apply, you want to prioritize it. You can't sometimes do it all, and you want to be able to find a way to prioritize on what you want to work on. And that information helps you saying, okay, maybe we should focus on that. And instead of doing a lot of things poorly, let's focus on the vulnerability that maybe if we fix would have the most impact.
Sometimes when I go and see presentations on security, it becomes overwhelming. Like, I realize that covering my eyes and saying this is too scary to think about is bad. But don't you feel completely overwhelmed? I mean, we're being attacked from all directions constantly.
Absolutely, I feel the same way, and that's when I need to stop and say, okay, let's see what you can do that has the most impact, and stop thinking that you'll fix everything, because you can't. But focus on what will have the most impact and try to find repeatable ways to fix issues, and that's all you can do.
Well, and when we think about being proactive, so if we think about the proactive controls, some of these things we've been told for many years. Like, it says 2018 because it's quite fresh, but validate inputs, encode and escape data. I was definitely encoding and escaping data 20 years ago, but we still see these mistakes today.
Yeah, but I also think, because I'm involved. Well, I'm involved in my OWASP chapter here in Ottawa, and we're hosting a secure coding workshop for the Ottawa University, because we realize that you can graduate from a computer science degree with a computer science degree and never have a class on secure coding. So even if those things, sometimes I think everybody knows what I know because I'm involved in OWASP and I hear it all the time. But if you actually talk to people who learn how to code, it's not something that they've been taught. So it needs to be repeated. It needs to be, we need to stop talking to other security professionals or people that already know and say, yes, 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 but I'll go to security conferences to tell people to shift left or to use tools from OWASP, but we need to be with the devs, go to development conferences and talk about these things. I think we need to stop talking to other security professionals about what to do because we know, but to make sure that the people that need to know, that are actually applying these things, need to know about that as well.
Sick of waiting for your CI tests to pass or having to manage different CI servers for different teams? Using BuildKite, you can run fast and reliable CI pipelines for every type of project, whether it's back-end tests, mobile apps, or even custom hardware. BuildKite's agent helps you scale to thousands of parallel jobs, and your secrets and source code never leave your infrastructure. There's great documentation, a clean web UI, and plugins for different types of tools. Visit BuildKite, that's KITE.com/Hanselman for a 14-day free trial and see how Shopify scaled from 300 to 1,500 engineers while keeping their build times under 5 minutes. That's BuildKite.com/Hanselman. Let's dig a little bit more into shift left. You mentioned it at the beginning, and I think that not everyone understands it. And for some people who might be not have English as their first language, shift left is kind of confusing. What is how things work today, and what are we shifting to the left when it comes to the software development model?
Okay, so when we're developing software, the life cycle starts with the idea, and then having security or requirements for your idea, and then you go into development. So you start from the left to the right and complete your project. And often we only think about security once you're at the end of a project, and that doesn't help because it will cost you a lot more in energy and resources and money to fix something once you're at the end of this project. So we're trying to start at the beginning, which is at the left of the life cycle, at the beginning of the life cycle, where you put you ask for your security requirement. It's basically asking someone to pass a test, but only giving them what they should have studied for at the end of the test. It's not fair. Why are you telling me what to fix in my application only at the end when I finish building everything? If I had known these things at the beginning, well, I would have designed my solution differently. but we're not that great at doing that because I've heard of shift left at least 15 years ago and probably before that as well.
That's a really great point, though. I'm thinking about if I've had someone build a house and the house is beautiful and we're about to move the new family into the house and we say, oh, we need locks. You're like, oh, locks. Oh, I'm gonna have to redesign the doors and the walls near the doors and like the windows and like locks. I wish you told me about locks when we built the house. Gosh, that's
Yeah. Or even worse, like adding suddenly saying, "Oh, I have 5 children. Maybe I need another bathroom." Okay. Yes, we can make it happen, but it's going to be awkward. We might have to move a room or make a room smaller and then add a wall where it wasn't meant to be a wall and then and you're destroying things that were not broken, but because of your new last minute design, you need to move. That is expensive and it's not pretty either. It might look awkward. It's clunky.
Yeah, and I'll put it in the link in the show notes. There's a report from IBM that says that if you find a defect like that, especially a security defect, it can be like 100 times more expensive to fix if you're in
Yes.
maintenance as opposed to when you're in design.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's something easy to say. I've heard shift left before but it's funny how we have a hard time doing that in practice. It's especially when things are being built very quickly in DevOps and Agile. We were having a hard time to putting the security requirements in a waterfall environment where things were a bit slower and more predictable. Now they're asking us to go even faster, and security has a hard time to catch up.
And I also want to call out again that you mentioned you're in your local chapter. And if we go up and search for OWASP local chapters, there's this wonderful Google map. There are hundreds of chapters all over the place, hopefully one near you if you're listening. And you can go
Yes.
actually and you can start your own local chapter and find speakers and get involved.
Yes, the last time I checked, I believe there was 221 chapters in the world globally, and 67 of them were in the U.S. and 6 active chapters in Canada. And every week, every month, new chapters are being created around the world, and that's one entry point to get involved with OWASP. But you can also get involved within projects. There's a bunch of open source projects, and the projects I spent time talking about, the proactive control, top 10, those are very mature projects with clear processes and repeatable and a good team. And they're called flagship projects. But there's a bunch of other projects that are in incubators or labs that are, not flagship, not as mature, but we're doing really, really interesting stuff, right? And building new tools and experimenting. And I would really encourage you to go through that list of projects and see if there's something that's interesting to you, and if you would want to contribute.
And it's also important to point out that OWASP is a worldwide nonprofit. So everything is free. The materials are free. There's not any endorsements. This is not a commercial entity that's trying to sell anyone anything. Anyone who wants to get involved can get involved.
Absolutely not. We really have to police that. However, there's a lot of businesses that want to rub shoulders with OWASP, but we are a nonprofit and we don't endorse any specific businesses for sure. We have a bunch of sponsors because we have conferences, at least 2 to 4 conferences, global conferences every year. Where you can get to meet a bunch of members of the community and get access to training at very reasonable prices, and a bunch of and get introduced to new projects as well, and different talks about application security.
Is this a good place for someone who is interested? Maybe they're a student or they want to move into information security. Is going to their OWASP local chapter a good place for them to get started in their career as well?
Absolutely. Yes. Depending on the chapter, they're ran a bit independently, but you can often find mentors. That's where I found one of my mentors, and how I changed department within the government once was by meeting my boss at a NOWASP chapter meeting. So definitely getting involved in your chapter is a good way to get started, and it's fun, and they have pizza and pop for free and a bunch of information. So why not? Why not?
Another thing that I think is really cool about you, that when I search around and learn about what you do, is that you love certifications. You've got a bunch of certification in
Yeah.
addition to your other bona fides. And do you feel that certifications are important to young people? Because I constantly get people asking on Twitter if they think that a certification will help them get that next job or that next opportunity.
Well, there are multiple reasons for someone to get certification. And for sure, for certain jobs, especially consultants, and in Canada, I can speak to for Canada, for consultant, the CISSP, for example, certification is essential because it gives you points in the competition to make sure that you get that contract. So it can be somewhere to a checkpoint for HR, right? But it's not only that. It's also a good way to get started in a different topic that you might not have learned in school, but you want to learn you want to learn about security, but never had a class for it, and you're out of school. Then that's a good way to transition into another topic and get the basics and get your security plus and get and now there's different certification about cloud and about Kubernetes, and they're getting more and more hands-on. It's no longer about learning a bunch of definitions and learning question dumps answer and then going through a test. It's really practical and hands-on learning. And something I say that might not be applicable in the US but in Canada as well is that you're going to for the certification for the skills. So you can go through the curriculum without having to go for the test. Because I do understand that it is expensive to get a certification. Sometimes all the material to learn, to go through the test, and then the maintenance fees. If you don't need it, if you don't need it as a job requirement, and it's not in the HR checklist, go through the material, learn what you need to learn, and move on to something else. I think it's you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's a way to get started at a new topic.
So it sounds like it's not the perfect answer for someone who maybe doesn't have a degree or a background, but it is a checklist, a checkbox on the way forward. I think sometimes people think that a certification will unlock an opportunity that it wouldn't have unlocked without it.
Sometimes it does put your CV on top of the list to show that you have an interest, especially if you graduated from a CS degree and then on top of that you went for certification. It shows that you have continued interest in your profession and that you're investing in your education. So it's a differentiator. You can get on top of the list, but it doesn't mean that because you have a certification that you automatically get a job. And a good HR process will know if you only have certification but don't practice. You don't have hands-on experience. They will find out really clear, really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Now you have a program that you're trying out in Canada called Secure the Cert. Can you tell me what that is?
Yes. Well, like you said, I'm a bit obsessed with certification and they are expensive. So me and Jenny Gay, my co-founder for Secure That Cert, we started a community where we gather people. We have a meetup group and we ask people who want to come and study with us for a different type of certification. And we run 3 groups this semester,
Wow.
the Security Plus, CISSP, and we started a pen testing fundamentals. And it's for people that want to get started in a new topic or in their studies. They've been talking about it, but they need the accountability because you can always do self-study, but starting alone, sometimes it's intimidating. You don't know where to start. Well, we have a game plan. We have a schedule, we have a curriculum, we know what we'll do every night, and we meet once a week for 10, 12, or 16 weeks, depending on the curriculum. And we go through the material and we have quiz questions and we go through them and hands-on examples. So it's the support and accountability and guidance that you need sometimes to move forward if you're unable to do it on your own or don't have the motivation.
Mm-hmm. It seems like you're a big proponent of community and allowing people and encouraging people to get involved. I'm hearing everything that you're talking about is about groups and community and people coming together to make something bigger that they couldn't do just by themselves. It sounds like you don't want people to just be studying alone in their home to try to pass all these tests.
Yes. Well, because you don't get challenged, really. You don't get exposed. I feel like it's it's a bit like traveling, where you think you know it all when you're alone with your book and you're like, yes, I understand it. But when you actually are able to teach it to someone else or listen to someone else explaining it to you with a different perspective, suddenly you have a different perspective, exactly, and you learn a lot more. And part of the study group is teaching to others as well, right? And we know that when we take the time to understand the material well enough to be able to teach it to somebody else, you understand a lot more what you're doing and what you're trying to learn. So, yeah.
Have you been as active in community the entire time of your career, or did you come into IT and software and security and go, oh, I'm going to find a community, or did you discover it part of the way in your journey?
I discovered it when now I'm trying to think back. I guess it was when I joined security, when I moved. Actually, for my first security job, I moved from Montreal to Ottawa. And my first event was in an ISSA, Information Systems Security Association chapter. We had one in Ottawa, and I got involved in that. And from there, I discovered other group, and then landed on OWASP, where I volunteered most of my time, and also secured that cert. So yeah, once I discovered it, maybe a bit later in my career, I didn't stop, and I'm very, very involved, and I feel like it keeps me motivated and makes it fun, right? I don't think that it should be all work, and you can learn and still have fun.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this is something that everyone can do? It sounds like you found that natural. A lot of people struggle to get involved. When you and I here on our podcast say, "Oh, well, you should just go to a meetup; it'll be great."
Yeah,
that can be overwhelming.
yes, for sure. And you find your tribe, you find your community, and you try it out and see if it fits you. And it might,
Exactly.
it might not, and it's okay. But like I said earlier, there's other ways to get involved. If you're more of an introvert and don't want to go out there, you can get involved in a project, and you don't have to leave your house for that. Just go through the inventory of all the projects and see where you want all the projects want help, all the projects want volunteer. So just see what's good for you, what's interesting to you, and contribute. And that's a way to build a community online as well, and not having to go out there.
I think that's a really important reminder. I think that sometimes people think that, like, well, if I don't have the ability to take your Git repository and clone it, build it, fix it, and send a pull request in an hour, then I'm not a good community member. But documentation, organizing, mailing lists, there's so much to be done that can be done from your home for free.
Yes. And different skill set as well. So many projects also at OWASP, I notice, are led by very technical people that might not have, the marketing skills needed to let people know about their projects, about what they offer, or social media, or documentation, or copywriting. So if these are things that you're good at, you can definitely reach out to a project and say, hey, I want to help you doing that. And just within my community, within my chapter, the chapter leader, the project leader of the Secure Coding Dojo, which is a platform where you learn to code securely. He's busy building the platform, and I volunteered to start the event, to start our workshop, and say, hey, within the community, we could have a workshop. So I know that I have those skills, and I can complement other people's skills and create events for my community. So get involved in a way. When you see a need, ask and contribute, for sure.
That's really cool. I appreciate that you're telling us that OWASP and the security community can be very welcoming for both new people, but also for people who might have 5, 10, 20 years in their industry, but they maybe haven't yet discovered their tribe. The encouragement to kind of go out there and try to find your tribe is so important.
Yes. And if it doesn't work the first time, it doesn't mean that it won't work every time, and that there are different projects to get involved, and there are different groups you can get involved in. So of course, when you're there, it's a bunch of volunteers or passionate people. Sometimes, the environment, you can fall into a group that's not that encouraging, but that doesn't mean that it represents the whole community either. You just move along. There definitely are opportunities to focus on the work, focus on technology, and stay away from the drama.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the idea of work study groups, the idea that getting some people together and studying. We've all done this before in school. You get a work study group together and you're describing effectively the same thing. And it doesn't have to be like people don't have to be sad if they tweet and 100 people don't show up. 5 people, 10 people in a group around a table studying to pass a certification can be hugely impactful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And our groups are not huge. I'm thinking less than a dozen. And, the maximum I think in a group is 14. And it's not about how many people we are. I just want people that are focused, committed, and, we notice when somebody doesn't show up, right? It's not just like a meetup where, you can RSVP and not show up. No, you have a responsibility. We count on you to present your section of the curriculum. So, people build relationships and are very close at the end of their study groups.
That's fantastic. It's so nice to hear that it's nice for me to learn, frankly, that OWASP is so much more than this top 10 list that I was reading every 3 years. That's the tip of the iceberg, and there's a huge community, thousands and thousands of members, hundreds of meetups, dozens and dozens and dozens of projects, all of which looking for help. That hopefully our listeners will be encouraged and go and get involved.
Yes. And I want to clarify that Secure That Cert, what I do with certification is different from OWASP. I'm a very, very active member, volunteer at OWASP, but Secure That Cert is something I do on the side. Mm-hmm. But yes, please go on the website, on our wiki, and check out the chapter that's closest to you. Start one if you don't have one close to you. And I even believe that there's a virtual chapter where they host meeting online all the time. So check it out. And if it's more the documentation or the projects, going to not only the flagship project, but the incubator and the labs project that might need help and are more experimental, there's a lot of fun stuff to play around with.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Nancy Gariché, for chatting with me today. This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.